My name is Riley. I'm 22, and for most of my life, my dad was my hero. He raised me alone after my mom passed when I was 7, and for years, it was just us two against the world. He taught me how to ride a bike, how to change a tire, how to stand up for myself. He came to every recital, every parent, teacher meeting, every birthday with a homemade cake. Because he couldn't bake, but he tried. We were a team, and I thought nothing could break that. Then I turned 15, and he met Vanessa at some work conference. She was younger, polished, had 2 kids from a previous marriage, and within 6 months, she'd moved into our house without anyone asking me how I felt about it. Suddenly, our house wasn't ours anymore, it was theirs. Her kids took over the guest room and my dad's office. I got moved to the basement because Vanessa said her son needed space for his gaming setup. When I complained, my dad said, "Riley, you're older, you understand, right? We need to make everyone comfortable." I swallowed my frustration and tried to adjust, but Vanessa didn't want me comfortable. She wanted me gone. It started small. She'd forget to make me dinner when she cooked for everyone else. She'd schedule family outings on days I had work and then act disappointed. When I couldn't come, she'd buy her kids new clothes, new phones, new everything. And when I asked my dad for help with a laptop for college, he said money's tight. Right now, maybe next year. But 2 weeks later, Vanessa's daughter got a brand new MacBook for her birthday. I confronted him in the driveway one night. "Dad, this isn't fair. You're letting her push me out." And he looked at me tired and defeated. "Riley, I'm trying to keep the peace. Vanessa's been through a lot with her ex. I need you to be mature about this." Mature? I was 16 and I was being erased from my own family, but he didn't care because keeping Vanessa happy was more important than keeping me. The breaking point came when I graduated high school. I'd worked so hard, maintained a high GPA, got into a good university on partial scholarship, and I was so excited for graduation day. I assumed my dad would be front row like he always promised he'd be the night before the ceremony. I heard them fighting upstairs, Vanessa's voice sharp and cold. "If you sit with her during the ceremony, my kids are going to feel excluded. They barely know her, and this is supposed to be a family day." My dad's response was quieter, but I heard it. "Fine, I'll sit with you. We'll all sit together as a family. Riley will understand." Graduation day came, and I walked across that stage to get my diploma, and when I looked into the audience, my dad was there, but he wasn't cheering. He was sitting stiff and uncomfortable next to Vanessa and her kids, who looked bored out of their minds. He didn't come to take photos with me afterward. He didn't take me to dinner like he promised. Instead, Vanessa said they had reservations for 4 and there wasn't room for me. "I'm sure you have friends you can celebrate with, right, Riley?" she said, smiling, that fake smile that never reached her eyes. I went home alone that night, sat in my basement room and cried harder than I had since my mom died, and that's when something inside me shifted. Stopped trying to be the understanding daughter. I stopped excusing his choices. I started watching. I started remembering. I started collecting receipts, because if he wanted to pretend I didn't exist, then one day I'd make sure everyone knew exactly what kind of father he really was. I moved out 2 months later, got a tiny apartment, worked full-time while going to school, and my dad barely noticed. He'd text occasionally asking how I was doing, but it was always surface level, never deep, never real. Vanessa had completely rewritten the narrative, and he let her at family events I wasn't invited to. I'd see photos posted online, my dad smiling with Vanessa's kids like they were his only children. Captions like "blessed to have such an amazing family," or "so proud of my son for making honor roll her son, not me." His actual daughter, who'd made Dean's List 3 semesters in a row. I commented once, "Congratulations to your son, Dad, I made Dean's List too, in case you were wondering." He never responded, but the comment was deleted within an hour. Then came the wedding. Vanessa wanted to renew her vows to my dad. Apparently their courthouse wedding wasn't good enough, so she planned this massive ceremony, full white dress, bridesmaids, the works. And I assumed I'd at least be invited. I mean, I was his daughter, his only biological child. 2 weeks before the wedding, I finally asked him, "Dad, am I invited to the ceremony?" He hesitated. "Too long, Riley. I don't think that's a good idea. Vanessa's family doesn't really know about you, and it might create unnecessary tension." Unnecessary tension, I repeated, staring at him in disbelief. I'm your daughter. That's not tension, that's reality, he sighed, rubbed. His face looked everywhere except at me. I need you to understand. This day is really important to Vanessa. I can't have anything disrupting it, anything. Meaning me. I left without another word, and on the day of his wedding, I sat in my car 3 blocks away watching Instagram stories of the ceremony, feeling like a ghost haunting my own father's life. I didn't speak to him for months. He didn't reach out either. It was like I'd never existed. Then one day, I got a text, Dad, we're having a celebration dinner next month for my promotion to partner. It would mean a lot if you came. I stared at that message. For a long time, part of me wanted to ignore it, to let him keep living in his perfect little world without me, but another part, the part that had been collecting screenshots, saving messages, recording conversations, wanted something else. I wanted him to face what he'd done, so I replied, I'll be there the night of the celebration. I walked into that fancy restaurant wearing my best dress, carrying a folder I'd spent 2 years putting together. The room was full of his colleagues, his boss, Vanessa, and her kids, all dressed up like they were royalty. My dad saw me and smiled, that relieved smile, like he thought everything was fine. Riley, you made it, he said. Come sit in the back, though. Vanessa thinks it's better if you're not in the family section during the speech. I looked at him, then at Vanessa, who was smiling, that cold smile, then at the microphone set up near the front of the room, and I made a decision. Actually, Dad, I think I'll say a few words too before anyone could stop me. I walked straight to the microphone, tapped it, and said, Good evening, everyone. I'd like to say a few words about my father. The room went silent. My dad's face drained of color. Vanessa stood up looking furious, but I didn't stop. I'm Riley, his daughter. Some of you may not know I exist because I wasn't invited to his wedding. I wasn't included in family photos. I wasn't even allowed to sit with the family tonight, but I think it's important you all know who you're celebrating. Someone cleared their throat uncomfortably. My dad started moving toward me, but I kept talking. My father likes to present himself as a family man, and maybe he is just not to his actual family. When I graduated high school with honors, he skipped the celebration dinner to take his stepdaughter to dinner instead. When I made Dean's List in college 3 times, he never acknowledged it, but he threw a party when his stepson made honor roll. Once when my mom died, he promised he'd always be there for me, but when he remarried, he moved me to the basement so his new family could be comfortable. I pulled out my folder. These are the text messages where he canceled plans with me last minute. These are the screenshots of family photos I was cropped out of. This is the voicemail where he told me I couldn't come to Thanksgiving because it would make Vanessa uncomfortable. And this, I held up a printed email, is the message he sent my university saying he wouldn't be contributing to my tuition despite promising he would for years because his stepkids needed the money more. The room was frozen. People stared. My dad looked like he wanted to disappear. Vanessa's face was bright red. Her kids looked mortified. His boss was frowning deeply. So, tonight, I said, my voice steady, as you all celebrate his success, his partnership, his perfect image, I want you to remember that he built it by erasing his own daughter. I want you to know that the family man you're applauding chose a woman he'd known for 5 years over the child he raised for 18. And I want him to know, I said, looking directly at my dad, that I'm done being invisible. I set the microphone down and walked out. The silence behind me was deafening. I got into my car and drove home, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The fallout was immediate. My phone exploded with messages. My dad called 17 times. Vanessa sent a furious text calling me disrespectful, selfish, ungrateful, but I also got messages from other people at the dinner who said they had no idea, people who said they were disgusted by what they'd heard. My dad's boss sent a private email saying he wanted to speak with my dad about his character and judgment. Vanessa's sister, who I'd never met, reached out and said she'd suspected Vanessa was toxic, but now she had proof. Apparently, I wasn't the first kid Vanessa had pushed out. She'd done the same thing to her ex-husband's daughter. My dad finally showed up at my apartment 3 days later. He looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, broken. Riley, please, he said, standing in my doorway. Can we talk? I crossed my arms. What do you want to talk about, Dad? How you chose her over me for 7 years, or how you only care now because I embarrassed you in public? He flinched. That's not fair. You don't understand the pressure. I was under pressure. I laughed bitterly. I was a kid, Dad. I lost my mom and then I lost you too. Because you were too weak to stand up to your wife. He started crying and I'd never seen my father cry before. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how bad it was. I didn't realize what I was doing. To you, you did, I said quietly. You just didn't care enough to stop it. We stood there in silence and finally he said, what can I do to fix this? I thought about it for a long time. Then I said, you can start by being honest with Vanessa. Tell her what you did was wrong. Tell her kids that I'm your daughter and I'm not going away. Tell your firm, tell your friends, tell everyone the truth, and then maybe one day we can talk about fixing this. But until then, I'm done being your secret. He nodded, wiping his face, and left. That was 3 weeks ago. He did what I asked. He sat Vanessa and her kids down and told them everything. Apparently, it didn't go well. Vanessa tried to blame me, said I was manipulative, that I ruined their family. My dad finally, for the first time, stood up to her and said, no, I ruined it by letting you treat my daughter like she didn't matter. They're separated now, living in different places. Her kids won't talk to him. His reputation at work is damaged. Some people think he's a hero for finally being honest. Others think he's a coward who only changed because he got caught. I don't know what I think yet. He's been trying. He calls every few days, asks how I'm doing, actually listens. When I talk, he sent me money for tuition with a note that said, this should have been yours from the beginning. I'm sorry it wasn't. It's not enough to fix everything, but it's a start. I don't know if we'll ever have the relationship we used to. I don't know if I even want that, but I do know this. I'm not invisible anymore. I'm not the secret daughter hiding in the basement. I'm not the kid who gets cropped out of photos. I'm the person who stood in front of a room full of people and said, this is who I am. This is what happened. And I'm not ashamed of it anymore. My dad chose his new wife over me for 7 years, and I could have stayed quiet. I could have kept being the understanding, mature one, but instead I chose myself. And when I grabbed that microphone and told the truth, I didn't just ruin his perfect image. I shattered the lie that had been suffocating me for years. So tell me, if your parent chose someone else over you, if they erased you to keep the peace, if they built their happiness on top of your pain, would you stay silent, or would you stand up, take the microphone, and make sure the whole world finally heard your side of the story? Because I did, and I do it again.